Welcome to the Livin'Sky Podcast, a show about raising connected, resilient kids in a world that often forgets what they need most. I'm Lena Livin'Sky, a pediatric speech-language pathologist, holistic feeding specialist, and a mom, here to help you understand your child's body, behavior, and biology in a whole new way. Each episode brings you simple, practical tools to support healthy eating, development, and family connection without the overwhelm. Thanks for listening. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Livin'Sky Podcast, your go-to source for healthy living and valuable insights into child development and family health. I'm your host, Paulina Livin'Sky, or Lena for short. As an SLP specializing in feeding, and most importantly, a mom, my work in holistic health reflects both my professional experience and personal journey. For over a decade, I've passionately studied and researched this field. Now I work with parents of children with chronic disorders, helping them heal and thrive. Join me for a mix of solo and guest episodes featuring experts in the health and wellness space. I can't wait to dive in, and also, I have a toddler, so I gotta get going. Let's get the show on the road. Welcome to the Livin'Sky Podcast. Today, I'm joined by a powerhouse couple who are using their unique expertise to make families and communities safer. Cory Wenter is the owner and CEO of Pangea Consulting with over 21 years of experience in safety and security. From serving in the United States Marine Corps, including on the presidential security team, to leading one of the nation's top synagogue security programs, Cory has helped develop world-class safety strategies used on a global scale. His background spans everything from martial arts training to emergency preparedness, and he brings a rare level of calm, clarity, and expertise to every situation. Ashley Wenter is a seasoned educator and school leader who truly lives out servant leadership. With a strong background as a K-12 administrator, instructional coach, and teacher, Ashley has dedicated her career to building safe, supportive spaces for children to learn and thrive. She's been honored as ACSA's Administrator of the Year and Spirit of Conejo Teacher of the Year, and brings such heart, wisdom, and vision to her work, whether in schools or at home. Together, they bring a beautiful blend of safety, structure, and compassion, both professionally and personally as parents and themselves. I know you're going to walk away from this conversation feeling more empowered and prepared, so let's dive in. Cory and Ashley, I'm so glad you can join me. I know our listeners will walk away with so many helpful takeaways from the incredible work you both do. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having us. This is going to be fun.
Yes. So let's dive right in. What are the most common emergency scenarios families in the U.S. should realistically be prepared for?
Well, it's regional. If you're on the West Coast, you certainly need to be prepared for fires, as we've seen recently, earthquakes, as we all know. If you're on the eastern seaboard, hurricanes. If you're in between, tornadoes and flooding. And every single family needs to be prepared for a fire inside of their home. It's one of the most common emergencies that families face, and most people aren't prepared for that sort of basic thing.
And what are some tools they should have on hand to prepare for a fire?
A fire extinguisher is definitely number one.
Mm-hmm.
Most homes that we go into, people think they have them, or they go looking for them and they start opening cupboards and realize they don't know where it is, or it's hidden in the back underneath the pantry of, supplies and things. And when they find it, it doesn't work because it does need to be recharged, and they do need to be serviced. So checking on that, making sure it works. Definitely having one in the kitchen. That's the most common place for a fire. It actually usually happens in the evening around dinner time. Go figure. And if you have more than one story in your home or apartment building, you're not too high up, a fire escape ladder, being able to get out and to the ground safely.
Okay. And this is something that, where is like a good place for it to be so that you can easily reach it?
A fire extinguisher? Or the escape ladder?
Escape ladder. I've actually never heard that tip.
Yeah, escape ladder. So in our home, we put it underneath. It comes in a bag, so it's, not too obtrusive, but you could put inside something a little nicer. Mm-hmm. But we put it under the window. We've identified that it has a clear path down. You don't want bushes or trees or something spiky or a fence right underneath. So it needs to be a straight drop down.
Okay, that's a really good tip. I think most people should think about that and really check on what they have. I have a fire extinguisher somewhere, so I have to go check.
Yes.
Definitely. And how often do they need to be recharged?
It's supposed to be checked every single year. That's why every school is mandated to do it every year to make sure that they work. We just don't tend to do it in our own homes.
Of course. So hopefully after this episode, everybody goes and checks to make sure they're ready in case something happens. Yeah.
I think the other thing that I'll add to that too as well. People may have fire extinguishers in their homes. A lot of people have never used one before.
Mm-hmm.
So also practicing using a fire extinguisher in your backyard or wherever is safe to do, depending on, where you live. But a fire in your home is not the first time that you want to be figuring out how to use that tool.
And it's fun. It's a fun
Yeah.
thing. If you can go in your backyard, it's maybe $30. You can get a cheap one and have your kids do it if they're old enough. It's a really good experience. Most people have never pulled one. She's totally right.
Yeah. No, that's very true. And what age would you start training your kids for something like this?
We started pretty young.
We start young.
Yeah. Okay. So my 3-year-old could have a little turn just to see.
4 or 5 for us.
4 or 5. I think 4 or 5 is like a good age. Yeah. Okay. Well, those are some great tips, definitely. And what are some emergency planning steps families can take this week so that they can start preparing for different types of crisis, something that could make a huge difference in their lives?
We like to put everything in 3 steps. Get a kit, make a plan, and make it real. So get a kit is keep it simple. Water, food, first aid supplies, trauma supplies. Make a plan. What are you going to do if there's no power, no communication? Your kids are at school, your husband's at work, and you're wherever you are. What does that look like? Where is everyone going? And then make it real. If your emergency supplies show up and you just leave them in the box and you don't put them in the trunk of your car and you don't put them in the right locations and you don't get the fire extinguisher out and you don't talk about it and you don't talk about that plan of how you're actually going to enact these things, that's not really helpful. Also, checking on it, a really good way, and it's an old school thinking, but it works, is when you change the clocks, check on your supplies. Make sure the batteries haven't leaked acid. Make sure the water isn't expired. Make sure the food isn't expired or that, animals haven't gotten in there.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things really help prepare family because you start thinking about it. You normalize it and it's part of what you do.
Definitely.
I think that this can also be a little overwhelming for people who really are start from zero.
Mm-hmm.
And we have on our website, we'll share with you so that you can share with your listeners.
Yes.
Family emergency plans that are fillable PDFs. We have emergency supply checklists that you can just check off and locations that we recommend people store them in. And of course, everyone's homes are different, but there are some better and some worse locations. So we have all of those free resources on our website and we'll share them with you too.
That's great. And I think especially for moms, like having a checklist, it's a really good tool to have. Well, and I think everybody could benefit from this. It's important because you never know. Because I feel like before the pandemic, it was kind of up in the air thinking, well, this is never going to happen. This is never going to happen to us. And it could happen, right? So it's really important to be prepared.
Toilet paper. Who would have thought?
Yeah. But right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I know. We ran out. It's crazy. Those Costco trips, they were kind of intense. You want to be ready before.
It was a wild time.
Yes, it was. Oh, man. I can't believe it was just like yesterday almost. Like it feels so long ago, but it just happened. It's crazy. So if someone listening has zero preparedness in place, where should they start?
I would say water.
Water.
Every one of your listener has water within reach right now, or they can go to a faucet and turn it on. For natural disaster, that's not necessarily the case. Even if it'll turn on, which it won't if there's no power, it doesn't mean it's potable. It doesn't mean it's clean. And so to really keep it simple, 1 gallon of water per person per day for a minimum of 3 days. That's the basics. Start there. Ideally, 2 gallons of water per person per day for 2 weeks, and count in the people you know are going to show up at your doorstep. Count in your animals. They need it too. That's really what you want to reach. It's pretty cost effective. It's not too difficult to maintain. And then once you have that in place, you get the ball rolling in it and it starts the conversation, and hopefully you can build from there.
Definitely. And hopefully this is something that is, like you said, reachable for most people since water is available to most in this country, at least.
Today.
Yeah, exactly. So we touched on this a little bit, but how early can we begin teaching our kids basic safety tips? And what are some most important ones that they should know?
So from a mom's perspective, we start teaching our kids basic safety, which is kind of a big umbrella, from the moment they start crawling, right? We tell them stoves are hot, not to touch things, not to put their fingers in electrical outlets. Those are basic safety tips. That's to keep them safe. And then as they grow older, we teach them their parents' first and last names and their phone numbers and their addresses. That's also considered basic safety.
Mm-hmm.
I always like to tell parents to include under the umbrella of safety as your kids from crawling begin to grow older to teach them the scientific terms for their body parts. Right? Body safety is safety. And so that is absolutely critical. And that starts from the time that you begin talking to them and you're, tickling their toes. And, we say fingers and toes. We should also say penis and vagina. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's what helps keep kids safe.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that is sort of a longer answer to say, if as a parent you begin teaching those basic safety tips really from the time that you begin speaking with them, and then build on developmentally appropriate, age appropriate terminology and awareness, it really should start from birth.
Yes, I've heard about that as well. I think it's so important for our children to be able to understand their body and be able to name every body part and be okay to know who it is okay for them to feel safe with, who can touch them and clean them, and who cannot. So I think it's a very important conversation for our kids to understand, and that there are no secrets, right? And you can always come to us with everything that happens, because I think the statistics are that the most common place that a child might be molested or anything like that would be with a familiar person, right? It would be with a family member.
Yeah. And we, our generation was taught stranger danger.
Yeah.
And now that doesn't apply so much anymore in terms of like sexual assault or molestation to a child. It is a known person to your family. And so the more that you can teach your children the difference between safe people and unsafe people, not necessarily strangers, you can teach them the correct terminology for their body parts. There's a different circles kind of debate what is considered a private part. I hear most people say your butt, your penis and or vagina, breasts / nipples, and mouth. So basically anything covered by a swimsuit and mouth. I know mouth is kind of up for debate depending on the person and the philosophy. And then to your point, the difference between secrets and surprises. That it's okay to have surprises. That's fun. We might surprise someone for their birthday or gift them something or show up at their house and it's a surprise. And there will always be a revealing of that thing. And a secret is when we're told not to tell. And anyone who says, don't tell, this is a secret, is not a safe person.
Of course. And I think you can start having these conversations with children pretty early on. And if they, you have a good attachment with them and you're emotionally connected, they're really able to understand it on a level that you wouldn't expect like a 4-year-old to understand and a 5-year-old to understand, because you are a safe person. So I just feel like they understand safety from that perspective, and to talk to them about that. I love how you pointed out like the surprise versus a secret, and there is a difference there. Because it's a very important distinction to make.
And I think when we as parents come to these bigger conversations around safety, when we're grounded, when we prepare, these aren't conversations that you just like on a whim decide to have, right? You as a parent should prepare for those conversations. When we come to it with that sense of confidence, although it's scary for us, as best we can, our kids pick up on that. They pick up on our body language so much. And so when we can come to it grounded and confident, they also understand that it is a safe conversation to have. We are normalizing it. And the more that we can talk about it, the better.
I'm a huge believer that light is one of the most powerful medicines for our kids and for us. That's why I love Bond Charge. Their blue light blocking glasses, red light therapy devices, and many other products are designed to support your circadian rhythm and help your family sleep and feel better naturally. In our modern world of screens and artificial light, these small shifts make a big difference. Calmer evenings, deep sleep, better focus, and happier moods. I use Bond Charge products every single day, and even my son has his own pair of blue light blocking glasses for evening story time. You can check out all their products at bondcharge.com and use code LENAL to save 15% off your purchase.
Yes. And we should talk about it, right? Because I think depending on where you grow up, but sometimes there is this stigma and maybe this judgment or shame you feel around talking about body parts like that. Because I certainly feel like I didn't have those conversations growing up. And I think it's so important, especially in this day and age, to have these conversations and not to worry about that because it's all about safety for your children.
Cory and I grew up very differently. There were like no secrets in my home. There was nothing that was taboo or couldn't be talked about, almost like to a fault. We talked about some very revealing things at the dinner table with our grandparents. And it's not how he grew up. And so it really does force you as a parent to figure out like, what is your value set regarding this? And are you comfortable if you grew up a little bit more like Cory and a little bit less like me, pushing yourself past maybe whatever that comfort line is in order to have these conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. Because in the end, the goal is for our kids to be safe. And that's the priority here.
Despite how I grew up, I also have fully embraced it. I think you
Yeah.
have to talk about these things. And I don't know what your demographic it is, but for, the girl dads out there, like I am pushing my limits every day to figure out how I can get comfortable in the uncomfortable and talk about anything because I need to be there for them in the same way, a different way, but in the same way their mom is, and be willing to have hard, wild conversations I never thought I would have because that is safety and that is necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it goes beyond that. What's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what I feel shameful about, what I don't feel shameful about. I think safety is number one priority. And there's always a way I feel like we can always find a way to communicate in a way that doesn't make us feel as uncomfortable as we think. Like there's always ways of, perhaps finding the right vocabulary that would make you feel better about it.
It's never as bad as you think.
Yes, it's not. It's not. So what's your take on practicing family like home drills and safety walks around the house? Do you think that's helpful for kids to have these types of drills? Because this is something you would typically do at a school, perhaps, but just to know what to do in a home environment.
Do you want me to take this one? I feel like,
Yes.
Cory, I will say I'm not the one between us and on our team who does residential assessments, although we do hundreds of them a year. And I pretty confidently can say for Cory and for our team who do them, nobody does this. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't, but it would be very, very rare for people to do like a home fire drill. I think in terms of is that helpful for kids, it really depends on how they're done. I personally wouldn't advocate for like a home fire drill to be done with children. I think to our point earlier, when you come to conversations with confidence, so do they. When you come with fear, so do our children. I think this kind of walks the line between like making kids a little bit afraid.
Right.
But awareness is different. And so you can bring awareness without doing a home fire drill. For someone who does live in a 2-story house or apartment building, I do think it's important to show children, like, this is what our fire escape ladder looks like. Here's where it's kept. I mean, Cory and the girls even like opened the window, took the screen off, and he showed them how it's deployed. They would never do that. They're too little.
Of course.
God forbid they have to actually climb down it, but at least they now have the awareness.
Also fun, by the way.
Yeah, they did have a really good time.
Sounds fun. Yes.
They thought it was cool. I think, awareness is really important.
Yes.
They should know where the fire extinguisher is. They should know how to dial 911. Every home now is different. Some have landlines, some don't. Some have, telephones that use the internet rather than a landline. Some homes are all cell phones. So kids do need to know how to dial 911. I think that's a basic one. How to deploy a fire extinguisher. Who in the neighborhood they can go to if there's an emergency, right? If a parent is for some reason either not home or incapacitated, who do they go to? Who is the adult in the neighborhood? Is it a safe neighbor? What is that resource basically? That awareness to me is much more important than actually conducting a home drill.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think like you said, without instilling fear, without making our kids feel like something is going to happen. It's just for them to know in case, there is any type of emergency, especially nowadays because we don't talk to our neighbors as much, right? So it's kind of an important conversation to have because growing up, you knew everybody on your street, kind of like who lived there. You would go play with their kids after school, and we didn't do that as much. So it's important for them to be aware.
I think that's interesting, though, because that's also very regional. I didn't grow up knowing any of my neighbors. I grew up in a suburb of Los Angeles. There was like one or two kids our age on the street. We didn't play with them very often, but I really wasn't like grounded in a neighborhood community. And we moved here, and it was shocking to me how much community connectedness exists.
Mm-hmm.
And so like our kids will grow up that way in a way that I didn't. And they know which neighbors they can go to, which ones are home more often during the day versus those who work outside of the home, who we have close relationships with. So that's definitely an important piece.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones we prefer they not go to.
Yes, that's important to know as well.
Yeah.
Definitely. But that's a very good point. I feel like I'm learning so much as a mom, and I know everybody else listening is as well, because, we have a million things on our to-do list anyways, but these are some basic things, and they won't take that much time to prepare your kids for. And it's so easy, and hopefully you never have to use it, but, that feeling of safety is so important for the whole family.
I think it's also like it's a muscle memory, right? There is a little bit of a misconception that I do the things, whatever the safety things are. I buy the kit, I put it where I'm supposed to put it, and then I'm done. And it's that thinking that's a little bit dangerous if we don't update the kits, check on expiration dates, but also talk about plans, talk about general safety, whether it's safe people or unsafe people, or we moved here and hadn't experienced hurricanes before. And the kind of big first hurricane, of course, Cory was out of town and it was me and the girls. And so we talked to them about it. Like, this is what we're doing in order to prepare. This is why. The more that we do that, it just becomes a part of our daily lives. It's not this big thing that we have to do or remember to keep up on, or this scary conversation we have. When we normalize all of it and incorporate it into our daily lives, it just becomes like our status quo. We are just by default now safer, as opposed to having to like remember to do these things, which, to your point, we all have a million things on our to-do list, and sometimes they fall by the wayside. So keeping up with that, like the muscle memory of it regularly, really helps.
I feel like, and I can speak to this because my dad has been he's the type of person to prepare, but kind of over prepare. So the amount of food he has thrown out over the years because he's kept it in the pantry and they've moved. And my mom was like, this is from like 2015. Like, what are you doing? So yeah, my parents are those types of people, which I think it's great because I feel safe. I know where to go if something happens. But it doesn't have to be to that level where you have like so many supplies. It could be just a few things to keep you safe and just be aware and just being aware. So for the emergency preparedness kit, this is something that you buy separately, you just gather your supplies, or is this something that you guys can recommend like a person could get from one place?
They vary vastly. There are some really cheap, terrible kits that have nothing valuable in them to very, very expensive, very high-end designer ones and everything in between. We don't have any deals with any of them. I will tell you personally, the ones that we like best is called Uncharted Supply, because it is so organized, because it is so easy to use. I literally pulled it out the other day when our daughter broke her arm for the first time.
Aww.
And so it's very simple, but no matter what kit you get, those are the starting point. So a basic kit should be in each car. A basic kit should be at home, ready to grab and go. And then you expand on that. Again, you need water, you need some additional food, but take into account the food you have in your cupboard and in your fridge to a degree. If you don't have a generator, it's only going to last so long. But most people have enough food in their pantry to be good for a while. It may not be the most ideal, but you're in pretty good shape. I would say most people need to focus on the water and the first aid kits and trauma supplies. You really need to be able to deal with a serious injury that, by definition of a disaster, the resources are depleted. You're not going to have the cavalry for an extended period of time, and you have to be able to fill that gap. And you're talking about a traumatic injury, an injury which with some basic training, people can truly save lives. You're talking minutes. And so to have those supplies in place are they're worth their weight in gold in a disaster.
Yes, absolutely. And most people have only, and not everybody, but people usually get just CPR training. How fast does it usually take for emergency services to get to your home in case of a disaster? Probably it's going to take a long time, but even in place of an accident. Yeah. How long does it take them?
Varies vastly. If you're at the 405 and the 101 in LA.
Yeah, exactly.
4:00, good luck.
Yeah.
That's why we keep all that stuff in our cars, not just for us, but to be able to pull up on an accident. We're really about empowering people. We're really about providing as much realistic training as we can to create upstanders instead of bystanders. You see today, everyone's taking videos. They're there to make sure they got that view of it. We don't want that. We want more people stepping in to help each other.
Of course.
And we have enough stories now of people that have gone through training and saved people's lives. And it has a profound impact on them and, of course, that person's family.
Absolutely.
I think that national average response time is 5 minutes for calling first responders. To Cory's point, that varies regionally and, of course, depending on the incident and who is responding. But we tell families and educators that for the first 5 minutes after an event, 5-6 minutes, they have to be their own first responder. And so what do you need in your home or in your car? And of course, when we talk about schools, that's a whole other conversation. But what do you need in order for those first 5 minutes for you to sustain yourself and the people around you?
Okay. So outside of like your typical CPR training, what is the type of training you should go through to understand like how to respond if there is a trauma accident?
There's several terms for it, but bleeding control, trauma training, basic trauma training. There's a Stop the Bleed is a very large company nationwide that is a known term, kind of Kleenex. But it's basically how to use a tourniquet, how to use a chest seal, how to stop extreme bleeding. And it actually is much more simple than people think. Tourniquet alone will deal with 93% of all deaths after a major crisis. Most people from the extremities can bleed out in 2 to 3 minutes. Throwing a tourniquet on can change things entirely, and they're very, very easy to use.
You know, these days when your child refuses everything you make and you just want them to have something nourishing, that's when I grab Signals. It's a real food meal replacement shake made with organ meats, minerals, and nutrients that support kids' biology, not just fill them up. It's rich in iron, zinc, and B vitamins, the building blocks for growth, focus, and strong immune systems. And it's great for the gut. And the best part? Nate calls it his ice cream shake. That's how delicious it is. And as a mom, it feels amazing to know he's getting what his body truly needs without the fight. You can learn more at feedyoursignals.com, and don't forget to use Lena10 at checkout for 10% off your purchase.
Okay. Wow. And I just feel like this is not something you commonly hear about because I have never been trained in this way, and I work in healthcare. So I think there's a lot of education that needs to be done.
It's also,
I think when you're
go ahead.
I think when you're a part of a network of first responders, this is all like very common information. This was not something that I knew about either, nor was I trained about. And we were gifted from a really great company a bunch of their tourniquets. And Cory handed me one and said, like, okay, here, what do you do with it? And I had no idea. Like, he's laughing because I came into his office and it was really kind of a silly demonstration because I didn't know what I was doing. But now there's one in both of our cars so that, you know, if there's an emergency, if Cory has like happened upon an accident that just happened in that moment, like how can you, to his point, be an upstander and help rather than a bystander? And those trainings, those trauma trainings, bleeding control trainings are very affordable. So whether, you know, whomever is listening, like gets a group of people together, a neighborhood group of people, suggests that their office does this, a group of moms do it together. They can be very, very affordable, and of course, save lives.
Absolutely. So is this just like a certification that you have to kind of renew every single year to freshen up your memory? Or is this something that you should just go through once so you know what to do?
Everything's perishable. Everything fades. Any
Mm-hmm.
sort of skill set like that, especially when you're preparing your mind and body to deal with the most complicated situation you've ever been in, where lives hang in the balance. That's something you need to practice. So
Absolutely.
certification wise, it's typically every other year, same as CPR, first aid, AED certification. But again, on the tourniquet, it's super easy. And if it's something you added age appropriately into your family, as part of that, checking the clocks twice a year. How do you put this thing on? You can literally put it on each other, on your leg, on your
Mm-hmm.
arm, and try it out. It'll take you 2 minutes, and it can make all the difference in the world.
And again, I feel like most people feel like it's not going to happen to me, but you just never know. It's so important to invest in these types of trainings. And hopefully it doesn't, but it doesn't mean it's going to kind of attract this kind of situation, but it's just so important to have these things, especially when you have kids. I think you need to be prepared for so many different scenarios. Let's talk about gun safety in homes, especially living in the South. A lot of people have guns in their homes. What are some ways that we can ensure that we're using them safely around the kids in our home, or we're storing them safely so there's not an accident that can happen in the home?
Same as we just talked about, there's nothing more important than training. Good quality, continual training. We do go in a lot of homes across the nation, and we hear, my husband bought a gun in 2020 because he was scared of what was going on. And we often hear, I went shooting once with my friend, he was a cop or former military, and I think they're good. They're not. It is something that has to be continually practiced. You have to go to the range. You have to be reminded of basic firearms fundamentals. This is a perishable skill, and it is a liability if you don't keep up with it. How you store it, where you store it, and I'd say more importantly than anything for home, for safety, for a family, is education for your children. Age appropriate, absolutely, again, matters on all these fronts. But the best experience that I've ever had with it, I'm not going to name their names, but I was brought in by a friend, and his wife, the mother, of course, was the catalyst of it, and asked me to come because they had bought a firearm and had taken them to the range. And then they asked me to come and sit at a dinner table with their 3 girls and them and have this conversation. And I talked about the very basics of it, what it is, how dangerous it is, that it is actually a tool, how it's going to be stored, locked away, that they don't have access to, all of those really important things. And more important than any of it, we allowed them the time and space to ask their questions. And kids have the best questions, the most interesting questions, the questions that we don't think of or avoid. And we had this incredible conversation, and it was very informative. We bounced it off from the parents to me, and we all left there feeling much better about it. That's a really great version that I wish we saw more of in homes.
Yes. Yes. I think it's a very triggering topic to many people as well. So I think these conversations are very important, as well as preparedness and safety, because it's one thing just to buy a gun because it's so easy to do in so many places, but know how to use it safely. It's another conversation.
I also think, not everyone should own a gun. And I think
Mhm.
that that's really important to clarify. If that weapon is something that you are afraid of and you are a gun owner, that's a bad match, right? There are other self-defense tools if you have it for self-defense or for home defense. There are other tools that are available to people that kind of span different purposes and uses, and really even intimacy levels, because if you own a gun, you have to be prepared for what it means to then discharge it. And that is a very scary, intimate conversation to have with the people in your home and even with yourself, right? To get honest with yourself about that. But I've heard Cory say to homeowners who have said, we want to buy a gun, but we're scared, or we own a gun and we're scared of it. Like, not everybody should own a gun. And if you're not willing to store it safely and to put the time into that regular training, then it's not a good fit.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. So for people who are not a good match to be a gun owner because they're afraid of it, they
Alternatives.
don't know how to use it, what are the alternatives they could have?
Got it. The very basics is pepper spray, OC, oleoresin capsicum. It affects, I think, 97% of all people. I've been sprayed 7 times. I hope I never get sprayed again for good reasons, for training, not because I've earned it. But it works. It's 45 minutes of real pain. It incapacitates most people. It's cost $15. You can get it on Amazon. It lasts 5 years. That is like baseline. People should have that. You should have it in your car. You should have it in your purse, in your backpack with you. A next level up is Taser, Taser. Most people have heard of that or heard stories of that. There's different versions of it. The flashlight version is super simple, very effective, incredible deterrent. And then the next one up, Byrna, Byrna, is a brand that's becoming very popular. It's a non-lethal, looks like a firearm, but it shoots projectiles that really hurt. It is legal almost everywhere. So it's a lower entry of training. You could train with it in your backyard, so you don't have to go to a range. And most people that we interact with, once they've done it once, they're really comfortable because it takes away the fear of, when I pull this trigger, someone's going to die. And for the people that feel that way, that is a way better fit than firearms. And on the other side of it, if you don't have that, I carry a firearm every single day. That's my world. That I would just say that anyone can learn to become fluent with it, become very confident with it. It is possible. What I don't like to see is the block of, whether it's political or whatever, we get to a point where this just isn't on the table. When it comes to safety, everything should be an option, and you should consider it all and make the decision that is best for you and your family. Because when it comes to safety, it is an extremely personal decision.
Yes. And it's not something that people typically talk about either, because it's usually gun. This is what you think about in order to keep your home safe. And I think this is an important conversation to have as well, to think about all these options and who really is a good fit to be a gun owner as well. Sorry, I thought you were going to say something. No. Okay.
I would just add to that, though, and I know we were going to maybe talk about this. If a family can afford to install a home security system, that is also another line of defense that could be helpful, right? So it's not going to be the thing that keeps you safe if someone enters your home, but it does give you, alerts you and gives you time to then decide what to do, right? So if you're sleeping in the middle of the night and you have an alarm system, for example, and that alarm is triggered, it gives you time to make decisions, and that time and decision-making process, the more you can get of it, the better. And so that is just another layer of home security that, if a family can afford to do, is a beneficial tool.
Yes. And I was going to ask you about that. So would it be just like a standard security system where you just have an alarm triggering, or do you recommend cameras as well? What's like the best safety or like security systems you guys have seen that are really beneficial?
The best version, which of course comes at a real cost, is a fully integrated system. Every alarm, contact on every window, on every door, and motion sensors, and it's integrated with a security camera system that has AI built into it, and it has facial recognition, it has license plate recognition, and it identifies friend and foe to a large degree and gives you proactive alerts. We had this happen with a client recently, and they were able to, 3 people come to their backyard, go over a fence, go in the backyard and try and break in the glass. And their kids, their nanny ran into their safe room that we built for them. And so those kinds of things are, that notice really matters on a basic level, because that's not for everyone, understandably. On a basic level, a basic alarm system, the ADTs, the ACSs, companies, they're basically using the same equipment. Every window, every door, and some motion sensors should have it. And more importantly than anything, you have to set it. You have to set it when you want it to go off. And when it's sort of like a gym membership, people say how often they go. But if you pull the record, it looks very different. Same thing with an alarm. If you ask them how often they use it, they say all the time. If you look at how often, it's less. For us, every single night, we turn that thing on because we want that advantage. We want to know if there's a bump in the night and someone's coming in, it's time to enact our family plan.
Yeah, and I think it could be very empowering to have it, right? Because it gives you that peace of mind versus kind of this. I feel like some people may feel like maybe we're doing too much, like this is just too much to worry about all these things. But I think it's important to definitely have, especially nowadays. And I don't want to say nowadays because this is more unsafe. It just kind of feels that way. I feel like after the pandemic, the level of safety was taken away. And I think to bring it back into your home is really important.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Yeah. Perfect. So if I'm going to ask you one more question that I ask everybody. So if you could share one piece of advice to help parents raise healthier, more resilient children in today's world, what would it be? And that goes to both of you. I would love to hear each one of you answer that.
Our answers are going to be different. Cory, you want to go first?
Yeah, I think resilience comes from what's called chosen suffering. Doing things that are really hard by choice, that's what creates resilience. I'm going to my nephew's boot camp graduation right after this. He chose to do that. That's not for everyone, but even for our 5-year-old, there are things that we have her do that push her limits, that get out of the comfort zone, that to make them comfortable in the uncomfortable. The more exposure to that, the better, because life is not simple and it's not all great, and everyone faces challenges. And so I think one of the most important things in the world is resilience, and I think that's how you build it.
Okay, mine's similar, but a little different. I often think about, especially with children, the graphic of spheres of control and influence. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's like a dot in the middle, and that's you. And then there's a circle around the dot, and that is everything that you can control. And there's a larger circle around that circle, and that's everything you can influence. And then the larger circle beyond that are all of the things that you cannot control or influence. And so I really like to help. I think that's where empowerment comes from for our children, for our clients, for ourselves. Like, what are the things that you can control? Buying water, emergency kits, right? Training, depending on the topic that we're talking about. Do those things. They're within your control, and they make you feel empowered when it does come to an emergency or a crisis. Same thing with kids. What are the things that they can control? How do we help empower them? Then beyond that, what are the things that you might not be able to control, but you can influence, right? Being able to acknowledge, I don't have full control, but I do have influence, and here's how I'm going to use it. If that's, gathering people to have neighborhood conversations around safety, for example. And then knowing everything beyond that you cannot control, nor can you influence. And so spending time worrying about, obsessing about it isn't healthy, and it doesn't build resilience. And so really kind of staying within those two circles.
I love that. And I think it's important for our kids to be able to visualize it. And I think that's a great thing to show them as well.
Yeah.
Well, so if somebody wanted to work with you guys, where can they find you?
So our website is pangeaconsulting.org. We are at Pangea Consulting on all social media. The easiest email to get us is info@pangeaconsulting.org. And we'll share all of those links and those resources with you too, so that you can share them with all of your listeners.
Yes, perfect. And you work nationwide?
Yep,
Okay.
Coast to coast.
All right. Amazing. Well, thank you both so much for coming on the show today. I learned a lot, and I think everybody else did as well.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for tuning in today and being a part of the Livin'Sky community. I hope you learned something new and inspiring that you can apply in your life right away. If you have a minute, please leave us a 5-star review. It really helps us grow and for other parents like you to find us. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Sending you and your family lots of love. I'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks so much for listening to the Livin'Sky Podcast. If this episode resonated, please leave a quick 5-star review or share it with another parent who'd love it too. It really helps more families find the support that they need. And don't forget to join my newsletter at LenaLivin'Sky.com for more tips and free guides. Sending a little sunshine to your kitchen today. See you next time.